The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. 7-year-old Lily sat on the plastic chair, swinging her legs back and forth because they didn't quite reach the floor yet. She watched her mom's face carefully, the way she always did now. Her mom was biting her lower lip, that thing she did when she was worried. Her dad kept checking his phone, then putting it down, then picking it up again. Lily knew why they were here. She'd been to this doctor's office 3 times already. Each visit, the tests got longer. The headphones got heavier. The beeping sounds that she was supposed to raise her hand for got harder and harder to hear. Sometimes she wasn't sure if she actually heard them or if she was just hoping she did. The nurse called them in, and Lily followed her parents down the long hallway. The audiologist, Dr. Roberts, was a kind woman with gray hair and glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. She smiled at Lily, but it was that sad kind of smile that adults give you when they feel sorry for you. Lily hated that smile. Dr. Roberts talked for what felt like forever. Lily watched her lips move, catching some words but not others. Profound hearing loss in both ears and progressive and hearing aids won't help much anymore. Her parents asked questions. Her mom started crying quietly, wiping her eyes with a tissue. Her dad put his arm around her mom's shoulders and pulled her close. Lily felt something heavy settle in her stomach. She'd known this was coming in a way. The world had been getting quieter and quieter for months. Sounds that used to be sharp and clear now seemed like they were coming from underwater. Her teacher's voice at school. Birds singing in the morning. Her baby brother's laughter. All of it was fading away like someone was slowly turning down the volume on her life. The ride home was quiet. Well, everything was quiet for Lily now. But this felt different. She could see that her parents weren't talking either. They were both lost in their own thoughts, probably worrying about her future. Lily pressed her face against the car window and watched the world go by. People walking their dogs. Kids riding bicycles. Everyone living in a world full of sounds that she was losing. That evening, Lily lay in her bed staring at the ceiling. She could feel the vibrations when her little brother ran down the hallway. She could feel the house settle and creak. But she couldn't hear her mom singing in the kitchen anymore, not even a little bit. She couldn't hear the TV from the living room. The silence felt heavy, like a thick blanket that she couldn't push off. The next few weeks were hard, really hard. Lily's parents tried to act normal, but she could see them watching her all the time, like they were waiting for her to break. Kids at school had started to notice, too. When she didn't respond because she hadn't heard them call her name, some of them thought she was being rude. Her best friend Amy tried to help, but even she didn't really understand what it was like. Lily started to feel like she was living behind a glass wall. She could see everyone and everything, but she was separated from it all, cut off, alone. Then came the Saturday that changed everything. Lily's grandmother had invited them over for lunch. Grandma Rita lived in an old house that smelled like vanilla and lavender. It was the house where Lily's mom had grown up, and it was filled with old furniture and photographs and memories. Lily had been there 1,000,000 times. She knew every corner of that house. After lunch, while the adults sat in the kitchen drinking coffee and talking, Lily wandered through the house. She wasn't really looking for anything. She just didn't want to sit at the table and watch people's mouths move without understanding what they were saying. It was easier to be alone sometimes. She found herself in the front living room, the fancy one that Grandma Rita only used when important guests came over. Everything in that room was old and delicate. The couch had doilies on the armrests. There were porcelain figurines on the shelves. And against the far wall, covered with a lace cloth and topped with framed family photos, was an old upright piano. Lily had seen that piano hundreds of times. She'd never paid much attention to it. Grandma Rita didn't play anymore, not since Grandpa died. The piano was just furniture now, just another old thing in a house full of old things. But something made Lily walk over to it that day. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was boredom. Or maybe it was something else. Something she couldn't quite name. She carefully moved some of the photo frames to the side and lifted the cloth. Dust particles danced in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the window. The piano was made of dark wood, polished but aged, with ivory keys that had turned slightly yellow over the years. Some of the keys had tiny cracks in them. Lily looked back toward the kitchen. Nobody was paying attention to her. She lifted the fallboard, revealing all the keys. Black and white, arranged in a pattern that repeated itself over and over. She hesitated for just a moment, then reached out and pressed one of the white keys in the middle. Nothing. At least, nothing in her ears. She'd expected that. But then, wait. She felt something. A vibration. It traveled from her fingertip up through her hand and into her arm. It was gentle, almost ticklish. She pressed the key again, harder this time. The vibration was stronger. It went up her arm and seemed to spread across her chest. Lily's heart started beating faster. She pressed another key, one a little to the left. This vibration felt different, lower, deeper. It rumbled more. She pressed one to the right, higher, lighter, quicker. She started pressing more keys, one after another. Each one created its own unique sensation in her body. The really low notes on the left side made her chest vibrate. The high notes on the right side felt sharp and quick, like little sparks in her fingertips. Lily pulled out the piano bench and sat down. She placed both hands on the keys and started exploring. She had no idea what she was doing. She wasn't trying to play music. She was just feeling. Each key was like discovering a new word in a language she didn't know yet, but desperately wanted to learn. Some combinations of keys felt smooth and pleasant together. Others felt jumpy and exciting. Some felt sad, though Lily couldn't explain why. She just knew that certain vibrations made her chest feel heavy and others made her feel lighter. Time disappeared. Lily didn't know if she'd been sitting there for 10 minutes or an hour. She was completely absorbed in this new world she'd discovered, a world she could access, a world where she wasn't locked out. For the first time since the doctor's appointment, since the diagnosis, since her world had started going silent, Lily felt something other than sadness and frustration. She felt wonder. She felt possibility. She felt connected to something bigger than herself. Lily? She looked up. Her grandmother was standing in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Behind her, Lily's mom and dad had appeared too, drawn by the sounds of the piano. Lily's eyes suddenly filled with tears. She didn't want to leave. She didn't want to stop. This piano, these vibrations, this feeling, it was the first thing since losing her hearing that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Her grandmother walked over slowly and sat down on the bench next to her. Grandma Rita didn't say anything. She just looked at Lily's hands on the keys, then at Lily's face, then back at the piano. There was understanding in her eyes. She reached out and pressed a key herself, a low one that made the whole piano hum. Then she took Lily's hand and placed it on the side of the piano's wooden frame. She pressed the key again. The vibration was even stronger there. Lily could feel the whole instrument come alive under her palm. It wasn't just the individual keys. It was the entire piano, resonating like a heartbeat. Grandma Rita smiled, and this time it wasn't that sad smile Lily had gotten so used to seeing. This was different. This was a smile that said, "I see you, I understand, and there's hope." Lily looked at her mom and dad standing in the doorway. Her mom had her hand over her mouth, fresh tears on her cheeks, but these weren't sad tears. Her dad's eyes were bright and wide, like he'd just witnessed something impossible. In that moment, sitting at her grandmother's old piano, Lily discovered something that nobody had been able to tell her, no matter how many kind words they'd offered. She discovered that losing her hearing didn't mean losing everything. The world still had ways to reach her. She still had ways to reach back. She turned back to the piano and pressed another key, feeling its unique vibration travel through her body. And then another, and another. The silence that had felt so heavy just hours before now felt different. It wasn't an ending. It was the space where something new could begin. After that day at Grandma Rita's house, everything changed. Lily couldn't stop thinking about the piano. At night, she'd close her eyes and remember the feeling of those vibrations traveling through her fingers. It was like she'd found a secret door in a wall she thought was solid, a way to experience something beautiful when she thought beauty had been taken away from her. Her parents noticed the change immediately. Lily seemed more alive, more hopeful than she'd been in months. At dinner that week, her mom started using sign language to communicate an idea. They'd been learning to sign as a family, slowly but surely. Her mom signed, "What if we found you a piano teacher?" Lily's eyes went wide. Could someone actually teach her? She couldn't hear. How would that even work? Her dad jumped in, signing along with his words. "We can try. Let's see if anyone out there can help you." That weekend, her parents started calling every piano teacher in their city, and the next city, and the one after that. The conversations all went the same way. They'd explain that their daughter was deaf, and there would be a long pause on the other end of the line. Then came the polite rejections. "I'm sorry, but I wouldn't know how to teach someone who can't hear. That's quite unusual. I don't think I'm qualified for that. Music is all about listening. Without hearing, I just don't see how it would work." Each rejection made Lily's mom more determined and more frustrated. Didn't anyone believe it was possible? Lily would watch her mom hang up the phone, see the disappointment on her face, and feel her own hope starting to shrink. After 2 weeks of searching, they'd almost given up. Then Lily's dad found a small advertisement in a community newsletter. Piano lessons for all abilities. Patient! Experienced teacher! At the bottom was a phone number and a name. Mr. Harrison. Lily's dad called, expecting another rejection. But this time was different. Mr. Harrison listened quietly as Lily's dad explained the situation. There was a pause, but not the uncomfortable kind they'd gotten used to. Then Mr. Harrison said something unexpected. "I've never taught a deaf student before. I'll be honest about that. But I've taught students with autism, students with limited mobility, students who struggled with traditional methods. Every student teaches me something new. If your daughter wants to learn, I'm willing to try. We'll figure it out together." 3 days later, Lily and her parents drove to Mr. Harrison's house. He lived in a small, cozy home with a garden out front. When he opened the door, Lily saw a man in his 70s with white hair, kind eyes, and hands that looked strong despite his age. He smiled at her, not with pity, but with genuine warmth. Then he did something that surprised her. He signed hello to her. It was a bit clumsy, but he tried. His living room had been converted into a teaching studio. There were 2 pianos, bookshelves filled with music books, and comfortable chairs. Mr. Harrison led Lily to one of the pianos and gestured for her to sit. He sat beside her on the bench. He didn't talk much at first. Instead, he took her hand and placed it on the side of the piano, just like Grandma Rita had done. Then he played a single note. Lily felt it vibrate through the wood. He played another, and another. He watched her face carefully, studying her reactions. Then he took both of her hands and placed them on the keys. He put his hands over hers and pressed down gently, showing her how to let her fingers curve naturally. He played a scale slowly, her hands following under his guidance. Lily felt each note resonate differently. The pattern of vibrations moved from low to high, like climbing stairs made of feeling instead of sound. After that first lesson, Mr. Harrison sat down with Lily's parents. He signed and spoke simultaneously, making sure Lily could follow. "This is going to be different from how I normally teach. We'll need to develop our own method. It might take longer. There will be challenges, but I believe we can do this." And so began the most difficult and rewarding journey of Lily's young life. Mr. Harrison's teaching method was unlike anything a traditional music school would recognize. He bought colored stickers and placed them on specific keys. Red for these notes, blue for those ones, yellow for others. It gave Lily a visual map of the piano. He created charts showing her which fingers should press, which keys. Using drawings instead of musical notation she couldn't understand yet. But the real breakthrough was teaching Lily to listen with her whole body. He'd have her place one hand on the piano's frame while playing with the other. This way, she could feel the vibrations of what she was creating. The low notes on the left side of the piano made deep, slow vibrations that rumbled in her chest. The high notes on the right created quick, light vibrations that felt almost ticklish. Mr. Harrison taught her about rhythm not through sound, but through feeling and sight. He'd tap patterns on the piano's lid and she'd feel the vibrations. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. She learned to keep time by feeling the pulse, by seeing his hands move, by sensing the pattern in her body. For scales and melodies, he'd play a sequence and then guide her hands to copy it. Slowly, Painfully slowly, Lily began to build muscle memory. Her fingers started to learn where to go and when. It was like learning a new language, except this language was spoken through touch and movement and vibration. The first few months were incredibly hard. Lily would practice for an hour and feel like she'd gotten nowhere. She'd hit wrong keys constantly and not even know it until Mr. Harrison gently corrected her hand position. What took other kids 3 weeks to learn took her 3 months. There were days when Lily wanted to quit. She'd sit at Grandma Rita's piano, which her parents had moved to their house, and just stare at the keys. Her hands would hover over them, but she couldn't make herself press down. What was the point? She couldn't hear what she was making. How did she even know if it was music or just random noise? One particularly frustrating afternoon, after messing up the same simple exercise for the 20th time, Lily put her head down on the piano keys and cried. The discordant vibrations matched exactly how she felt inside. Jumbled, wrong, impossible to fix. Her mom came and sat beside her. She didn't try to make Lily feel better with empty words. She just sat there, rubbing her back, letting her feel all the frustration and sadness. Then her mom signed something that Lily would remember forever. "You're not trying to play like everyone else. You're learning to play like you, your own way. That's harder, but it's also special." Lily lifted her head and looked at her mom. Then she looked back at the piano. Maybe her mom was right. Maybe she needed to stop comparing herself to what other kids could do and just focus on what she could do. She wiped her eyes, positioned her hands, and tried the exercise again. Slowly, week by week, month by month, something started to change. Lily began to understand that music wasn't just about hearing. It was about patterns, about rhythms, about the way notes connected to each other. She started to recognize when a sequence of vibrations felt complete and when something was missing. She could sense when she'd hit a wrong key because the pattern of feelings in her hands didn't match what she'd memorized. 6 months into her lessons, Mr. Harrison decided to try something new. He played a very simple melody, just 5 notes, and then asked Lily to copy it. She placed her hands on the keys, closed her eyes, and tried to recreate the pattern of vibrations she'd felt. She played it back. Not perfectly, but close. Really close. Mr. Harrison's face broke into the biggest smile Lily had ever seen. He gave her a thumbs up, and Lily felt something burst open in her chest. Pride, accomplishment, joy. She'd done it. She'd actually played back a melody. From that moment on, practice felt different. It wasn't just repetitive exercises anymore. It was discovery. Every time she sat at the piano, she was learning a new word in the language of vibrations. She was building sentences, creating meaning, making something that mattered. She practiced every single day. Before school, she'd run through her scales. After homework, she'd work on her exercises. Before bed, she'd play through whatever song she was learning, feeling the vibrations flow through her fingers like water. Her little brother would sometimes sit on the floor near the piano, playing with his toys while she practiced. Her parents would stop whatever they were doing just to watch her play, amazed at how far she'd come. One evening, her dad came home from work, tired and stressed. He walked in the door and stopped. Lily was at the piano playing something he recognized. It was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, simple, maybe even childish, but she was playing it all the way through. The whole song, from beginning to end. He stood in the doorway, his briefcase still in his hand, and just listened. Tears started rolling down his face. His daughter, his beautiful, determined daughter, was creating music. She couldn't hear it, but everyone else could. And it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever heard. Lily finished the song and looked up. She saw her dad standing there crying, and for a second she worried something was wrong. But then he rushed over, dropped his briefcase, and hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. When he pulled back, he signed to her. That was perfect. "You did it," Lily smiled. For the first time since losing her hearing, she felt like herself again. Not broken, not less than, just different. And different was okay. Different could be beautiful. 2 years passed like water flowing over stones, slowly but steadily shaping everything in its path. Lily was 9 years old now, and the little girl who had once cried over wrong notes had transformed into someone completely different. She practiced 4 hours every single day. Before school, after school, on weekends. The piano had become more than just an instrument to her. It was her voice, her way of speaking to a world that she experienced differently than everyone else. Mr. Harrison watched her progress with quiet amazement. In his 50 years of teaching, he'd never seen determination quite like Lily's. She'd progressed further than he'd thought possible. She was now playing pieces that some of his hearing students struggled with. Complex melodies, challenging rhythms. Music that required not just technical skill, but emotional understanding. One Tuesday afternoon, Mr. Harrison had an idea. It was time. Time for Lily to share her gift with others. He approached her parents after a lesson and suggested something that made them both nervous and excited. "I hold a recital for my students every spring. It's small, just family and friends, maybe 100 people. I think Lily should perform." Lily's mom looked uncertain. "Do you really think she's ready?" "Performing in front of people is different from practicing at home." Mr. Harrison nodded. "She's ready. More than ready. She deserves to show people what she can do." When they told Lily, her reaction was immediate. Fear. Pure, absolute fear washed over her face. She signed frantically. "No, I can't. What if I mess up? What if people laugh?" Her dad knelt down to her level. "Nobody's going to laugh. And you know what? Even if you make mistakes, that's okay. That's part of performing. That's part of being human." But Lily shook her head. The thought of sitting in front of strangers playing music she couldn't even hear terrified her. What if her timing was off? What if she hit wrong notes and didn't realize it? Everyone in that audience would hear her mistakes. Everyone except her. Mr. Harrison didn't push. He simply said, "Think about it. You have time to decide." For 3 days, Lily thought about nothing else. She'd lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, imagining herself on stage. Her stomach would twist into knots. But there was something else, too, mixed in with the fear. A tiny spark of curiosity. What would it feel like to play for people? To share what she'd worked so hard to learn? On the 4th day, she told Mr. Harrison yes, she'd do it. She'd perform. The weeks leading up to the recital were intense. Lily practiced her piece over and over until her fingers could play it in her sleep. She'd chosen Für Elise by Beethoven. Mr. Harrison had suggested it, telling her the story of how Beethoven himself had started losing his hearing while composing some of his greatest works. Lily felt connected to that story. If Beethoven could create beauty even while going deaf, maybe she could too. But knowing the piece perfectly in her living room was different from performing it in front of people. The closer the recital got, the more nervous Lily became. She started having nightmares about forgetting everything in the middle of the performance, her hands frozen on the keys while everyone stared. The night before the recital, Lily couldn't sleep. She got up and went to the piano in the dark living room. She sat on the bench and just put her hands on the keys without pressing them. The piano felt solid and familiar under her fingertips. It was the one thing in her life that made sense, even when everything else felt confusing and scary. Her mom found her there an hour later. She sat down beside Lily and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She didn't sign anything. She just held her daughter close, and somehow that was enough. Lily leaned against her mom and felt her breathing, steady, calm, present. The day of the recital arrived too quickly. The performance was being held in a small community theater. Mr. Harrison had rented it for the afternoon, and his students would perform one by one. Lily was scheduled near the end of the program. Backstage was chaos. Kids in fancy clothes running around. Parents fixing hair and straightening ties. Lily stood in the corner with her mom and dad, trying to stay calm. She could feel her heart pounding so hard she thought it might jump out of her chest. Through a gap in the curtain, she watched the other students perform. They walked out confidently, sat at the grand piano on stage, and played their pieces. Some were really good. Some made small mistakes but kept going. All of them seemed so comfortable, so natural. Lily felt like an imposter. What was she doing here? She signed to her mom. "I can't do this. Everyone will know I'm different. Everyone will know I can't hear." Her mom gently turned Lily's face toward her own. She signed back slowly, making sure Lily caught every word. Being different is not bad. Being different is what makes you special. You've worked harder than any of these other kids. You've earned your place on that stage. But Lily's hands were shaking. She looked down at them, these hands that had spent 2 years learning to feel music, and willed them to be steady. They wouldn't stop trembling. Then she felt a hand on her shoulder. Mr. Harrison was there. He knelt down so he was at her eye level. He signed to her, something simple but powerful. You don't play for their ears. You play for their hearts. Play the way you feel it. That's all you need to do. Lily took a deep breath. Then another. And another her name was called. Well, she didn't hear it called, but Mr. Harrison nodded and gestured toward the stage. It was time. She walked out onto the stage, and the lights were so bright she couldn't see the audience. Maybe that was better. She couldn't see their faces, couldn't see them watching her, judging her. It was just her and the piano. The grand piano on stage was bigger and fancier than any piano she'd practiced on. For a moment, panic fluttered in her chest. What if it felt different? What if the keys responded differently? She sat down on the bench and adjusted her position the way Mr. Harrison had taught her. She placed her hands on the keys, feeling the cool ivory under her fingertips. She closed her eyes and took one more deep breath. Then she began to play. The first notes came out tentatively. She was hyper-aware of every movement, every finger placement. But then, slowly, the music started to take over. She stopped thinking and started feeling. The vibrations flowed through her hands, up her arms, into her chest. The pattern of the piece was written into her muscle memory so deeply that her fingers knew where to go. She swayed slightly as she played, moving with the rhythm she felt in her body. Her face showed every emotion in the music. The gentle parts, the dramatic parts, the sad parts, the hopeful ending. In the audience, something extraordinary was happening. People had been politely watching, clapping after each performance. But when Lily played, something shifted. The room became completely still. There was a quality to her playing that was different from the other students. Raw, honest, vulnerable. She wasn't just playing notes. She was pouring her heart out through her fingers. Nobody knew she was deaf. Mr. Harrison hadn't mentioned it in the program. But somehow people could sense that this was different. This mattered more. Lily played the final notes and let them fade. She sat there for just a moment, hands still on the keys, feeling the last vibrations disappear. Then she stood up, turned toward the audience, and gave a small bow the way Mr. Harrison had taught her. For 1 second, there was complete silence. Lily's heart sank. Had she messed up? Was it terrible? Then the audience erupted. People jumped to their feet. They were clapping, some with their hands high above their heads. Some people had tears on their faces. A standing ovation. Lily couldn't hear any of it. She stood there confused, wondering what was happening. Why was everyone standing? Why did they look so emotional? Then Mr. Harrison walked onto the stage. He came over to her, put his arm around her shoulders, and turned her toward the audience. He started signing to her while also speaking to the crowd. I need to tell you all something about this remarkable young lady. Lily is deaf. She cannot hear the music she just played for you. She learned to play piano by feeling vibrations. Everything you just heard, she has never heard. She experiences music completely differently than we do. The morning after the video went viral, Lily woke up to find her entire family gathered around the kitchen table, staring at a laptop screen with expressions of complete shock. Her dad saw her come into the kitchen and quickly signed, "You need to see this." Lily walked over and looked at the screen. Numbers. Big numbers. The video of her performance had been viewed over 2 million times. 2 million. Lily couldn't even imagine that many people. The comment section was flooded with messages in different languages, heart emojis, and people tagging their friends and family. Her mom scrolled through some of the comments, translating them into sign language for Lily. This made me cry. My daughter is deaf, and I'm showing her this right now. I've never seen anything so beautiful. This girl is a gift to the world. Message. After message after message, Lily felt overwhelmed. She'd just wanted to play piano at a small recital. She never expected this. Never expected strangers from countries she'd never even heard of to watch her play and care about her story. The phone started ringing, and it didn't stop. News stations wanted interviews. Magazines wanted to write articles. Organizations that worked with deaf children wanted to feature her story. Even some famous musicians reached out through social media, leaving encouraging messages. Lily's parents tried to shield her from the chaos as much as possible. but it was impossible to ignore completely. Her school found out. Her classmates found out. Suddenly, the girl who had felt invisible and isolated was being recognized everywhere she went. Some of the attention was wonderful. Teachers at her school started learning basic sign language to communicate with her better. Kids who had never talked to her before wanted to be her friend. The principal invited her to perform at the next school assembly, but some of it was hard, too. People would stare at her in grocery stores. Strangers would come up and ask for photos. Some kids at school started treating her differently, like she was fragile or special in a way that made her uncomfortable. Lily didn't want to be treated like she was made of glass. She just wanted to be herself. Through all the noise and attention, one message stood out. It came from a woman named Ms. Peterson, who ran a non-profit organization dedicated to making arts accessible to people with disabilities. She'd seen the video and wanted to know if Lily would be willing to perform at a benefit concert. The money raised would go toward creating music programs in schools for the deaf across the country. The concert would be huge, not 100 people like the recital. 2,000 people, in a real concert hall, with professional lighting and sound equipment and everything. When her parents told her about it, Lily's first instinct was to say no. The recital had been scary enough. This seemed impossible. But then her mom showed her more messages that had come in. Messages from parents of deaf children who said the video had given them hope. Messages from deaf teenagers who said they'd always loved music but never thought they could learn an instrument. Messages from teachers who were starting to rethink what was possible for their deaf students. Lily realized something important. This wasn't just about her anymore. Her story had touched something in people. It had opened a door for others who felt like certain things were closed to them because of their disabilities. She took a deep breath and signed to her parents. Okay, I'll do it. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Mr. Harrison helped her prepare 3 pieces for the concert. For Elise, which people knew from the video, a piece called Clair de Lune by Debussy, which had the most beautiful vibrations Lily had ever felt. And something she'd never done before, an original composition that she'd been working on with Mr. Harrison's help. Creating her own music had been Mr. Harrison's idea. You experience music differently than most people, he'd told her. That means you might create something different too. Something unique that could only come from you. They called the piece Silent Symphony. It was short, just 3 minutes long, but every note meant something to Lily. It told the story of her journey. The confusion and sadness of losing her hearing, the discovery of the piano, the slow, hard work of learning, and finally, the joy of connection and hope. Lily practiced relentlessly. Her fingers flew across the keys for hours each day. Her family had gotten used to the constant vibrations flowing through the house. Her little brother would do his homework at the kitchen table, the piano's resonance humming through the floor beneath his feet. As the concert date approached, Lily felt different than she had before the recital. She was still nervous, definitely still nervous, but there was something else too. Purpose. She understood now that her performance could mean something to people beyond just entertainment. It could show them what was possible. It could change how they thought about disability and limitation. The night before the concert, Grandma Rita came over for dinner. After they ate, she pulled Lily aside and gave her a small box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a charm in the shape of a piano. Grandma Rita signed, "Your grandfather gave me this when I used to perform. I want you to have it now, for luck, and to remind you that you carry our love with you wherever you go." Lily put it on and hugged her grandmother tight. She wore that bracelet every day from then on. The day of the concert arrived. The venue was enormous. Lily and her family arrived early for sound check and rehearsal. When Lily walked into the concert hall and saw the sea of red velvet seats stretching back into the darkness, her stomach dropped. So many seats, so many people who would be watching her. The stage was massive with a beautiful black grand piano in the center, spotlights positioned above it. The acoustics in the room were designed to carry sound perfectly to every corner. Of course, Lily wouldn't hear any of that, but she could feel how the space was different. The vibrations moved differently here. She practiced her pieces on the concert piano, getting used to how it felt. Every piano was slightly different. This one's keys were a bit heavier than she was used to, but the vibrations were incredible, rich and full and powerful. As evening approached, the audience began filing in. Backstage, Lily watched through a monitor as the seats filled up. Families, couples, groups of friends. She saw many people signing to each other. Deaf audience members who had come specifically to see her. That made her feel less alone. Ms. Peterson, the woman who organized the event, came backstage to check on Lily. She signed and spoke simultaneously. There are about 50 deaf children in the audience tonight. They're sitting with their families in a special section. Some of them have never seen a live piano performance before. You're giving them something precious. The knowledge that they can do anything. Lily felt the weight of that responsibility, but it didn't crush her. Instead, it lifted her up. She was doing this for them, for all the kids who felt different and left out, for everyone who'd been told that certain dreams weren't meant for people like them. The house lights dimmed. The show began. There were speeches and video presentations about the organization's work. Then it was time. Ms. Peterson walked on stage and introduced Lily, telling her story. The audience listened in complete silence. Then she gestured to the wings and Lily walked out. The applause was thunderous. Lily couldn't hear it, but she could feel it. The vibrations of 2,000 people clapping moved through the stage floor and up into her body. It felt like the whole building was alive. She sat at the piano, adjusted the bench, and looked out at the darkness beyond the lights. Somewhere out there were 50 deaf children watching her. Somewhere out there were their parents hoping for a glimpse of what their children's futures might hold. Somewhere out there were people who just needed to see something beautiful and hopeful. Lily placed her hands on the keys and began with Für Elise. Her fingers moved with confidence now. The piece that had once seemed impossibly difficult flowed out of her like breathing. She felt every vibration, every shift in the pattern, every emotional rise and fall. When she finished, the applause washed over her again. But she didn't stand up. She went straight into Clair de Lune. This piece was more delicate, more emotional. It required a softer touch, more subtlety. Lily poured everything into it. All her loneliness, all her hope. All her gratitude for the piano that had saved her. Then came Silent Symphony, her own composition. This was the scariest part. Original music was personal. It came from inside her. What if people didn't understand it? What if they thought it was strange? But as she played, none of that mattered. She was telling her story the only way she knew how, through vibrations and patterns and the language her body had learned to speak. The piece moved from dark and heavy to light and joyful, mirroring her own journey from isolation to connection. When the final notes faded, Lily sat still for a moment. Then she stood and turned to face the audience. Every single person was on their feet. The deaf children in the special section were waving their hands in the air, the sign language version of applause. Parents were crying. Strangers were hugging each other. Lily smiled. A real, genuine, joyful smile. She'd done it. She'd shared her gift with the world, and the world had embraced it. The applause somehow got even louder. Some people in the audience were openly crying now. Lily finally understood what was happening. They liked it. They really liked it. She had done it. Her parents rushed up onto the stage and wrapped her in a huge hug. All three of them were crying and laughing at the same time. Her little brother, who was sitting with Grandma Rita, was clapping his hands so hard they probably hurt. What Lily didn't know was that someone in the audience had been recording. A parent filming their own child's performance had left their phone running and caught Lily's entire piece. That night, they posted it online with a simple caption, 9-year-old deaf girl plays Beethoven. Watch until the end. By morning, the video had a few hundred views. By afternoon, a few thousand. By the end of the week, it had hundreds of thousands. News websites started picking up the story. Local TV stations called wanting interviews. The video spread across the internet like wildfire. People were amazed, inspired, moved to tears. Comments poured in from around the world. Other deaf children and their parents, musicians, teachers, random people who just needed to see something beautiful and hopeful in their day. Lily's life changed overnight, but she didn't fully understand it yet. She just knew that she'd faced her biggest fear and come out the other side. She'd played piano in front of people, and instead of laughing or judging, they'd celebrated her. That night, curled up in bed with her stuffed animals, Lily smiled. The piano had given her back something she thought she'd lost forever. A way to connect with people, a way to share something meaningful, a way to prove that being different didn't mean being less. After the concert, dozens of people came backstage to meet her. Parents brought their deaf children to shake her hand. One little girl, maybe 5 years old, signed to Lily, "I want to play piano like you." Lily knelt down and signed back, "You can. I promise you can." In the months that followed, Lily's impact rippled outward in ways she never imagined. Schools for the deaf started adding music programs. Piano teachers began accepting deaf students. Organizations developed new teaching methods inspired by how Lily had learned. Now, at 11 years old, Lily continues her lessons with Mr. Harrison. She performs a few times a year at events promoting accessibility and inclusion. She practices every day, always learning new pieces, always pushing herself further. Her room is decorated with letters and drawings from deaf children around the world who started learning instruments after seeing her story. Each one reminds her why she keeps going, even on days when practice is hard and frustrating. Mr. Harrison often tells people, Lily didn't learn piano despite being deaf. She learned piano in her own unique way. And in doing so, she taught all of us that music isn't just sound. It's feeling, it's vibration, it's emotion, it's universal. Lily's dream now is to become not just a pianist, but a teacher. She wants to help other deaf children discover what she discovered, that their differences don't limit them, that beauty and art and expression belong to everyone, regardless of how they experience the world. On quiet evenings, Lily still sits at Grandma Rita's old piano, the one where it all began. She places her hands on those familiar keys and plays. The vibrations travel through her fingers, up her arms, and settle in her heart. In those moments, she's not thinking about viral videos or concerts or inspiring others. She's just a girl playing piano, feeling the music flow through her, connected to something bigger than herself, proving every single day that the human spirit can't be silenced, even in silence. 3 years had passed since that benefit concert that changed everything. Lily was now 14 years old, and if you asked her, she'd tell you that becoming a teenager while being internet famous was complicated in ways she never expected. High school was different from elementary school. The kids were older, more aware, and some of them had seen her videos before she even walked through the doors on her first day. Some treated her like a celebrity, which felt weird and uncomfortable. Others treated her with suspicion, like she was showing off or seeking attention. A few, thankfully, just treated her like a normal person who happened to play piano and happened to be deaf. Lily had learned to navigate this strange new world she lived in. She still practiced piano every single day, though now she was working on incredibly complex pieces that would challenge even advanced hearing students. Mr. Harrison, now in his late 70s, still taught her every week. Their lessons had become less about technique and more about artistry, about finding her own voice through the instrument. But something else had started happening too. Something that Lily hadn't planned for, but that filled her with a sense of purpose she'd never experienced before. It started with an email. A mother from across the country had reached out through Lily's website, which her parents had set up to manage all the messages and requests that still came in regularly. The woman's name was Mrs. Johnson, and she had a 6-year-old deaf son named Tyler who had become obsessed with piano after watching Lily's videos. The email was simple, but heartbreaking. Tyler wanted to learn so badly, but Mrs. Johnson had called every piano teacher in their area, and nobody would take him. They all said the same things Lily's parents had heard years ago. "I wouldn't know how to teach him. It's not possible without hearing. I'm not qualified for that." Mrs. Johnson was writing to ask if Lily had any advice. Any tips for teaching a deaf child? Any resources that might help? Lily read that email 3 times. She saw herself in Tyler's story. That desperate desire to connect with music. That crushing disappointment when doors kept closing. She knew exactly how he felt. She couldn't teach Tyler herself. She lived too far away, and besides, she was only 14. She wasn't a real teacher, but maybe she could do something else. That weekend, Lily talked to Mr. Harrison about an idea that had been forming in her mind. What if they created video tutorials specifically designed for deaf students who wanted to learn piano? Videos that showed exactly how Mr. Harrison had taught her. Videos that focused on feeling vibrations, using visual cues, understanding rhythm through the body instead of the ears. Mr. Harrison's eyes lit up. That's brilliant! We could help so many children who are in the exact situation you were in. They started filming the next week. Lily's dad, who had gotten pretty good with a camera over the years of documenting her journey, helped them set up proper lighting and angles. They filmed in their living room at the same piano where Lily had spent thousands of hours practicing. The videos were different from typical piano tutorials. Lily demonstrated everything from a deaf person's perspective. She showed viewers how to place their hands on the piano's frame to feel vibrations. She explained how different notes created different physical sensations. She demonstrated rhythm exercises using visual counting and physical movement. Mr. Harrison appeared in the videos too, explaining his teaching methods and offering advice to parents and teachers who wanted to help deaf children learn music. They uploaded the first video to Lily's channel with the title, How I Learned Piano While Deaf, Lesson 1. Within a week, it had 50,000 views. The comment section exploded with gratitude. My daughter has been begging to learn piano, and I didn't know where to start. Thank you for this. I'm a music teacher, and I always said no to deaf students because I didn't know how. Now I'm going to try. Thank you for showing us the way. I'm deaf, and I'm 42 years old, and I always wanted to learn an instrument. Maybe it's not too late? Lily read every comment. Each one reminded her why this mattered. They continued making videos, covering everything from basic finger positioning to playing actual songs. They showed the process step by step, mistake by mistake, success by success. Then something unexpected happened. Teachers started reaching out. Real music teachers from schools and private studios who wanted to learn these methods so they could teach their own deaf students. They wanted workshops, training sessions, guidance. Lily and Mr. Harrison had accidentally started a movement. A local university that specialized in special education invited them to give a presentation. Lily was terrified. Speaking to a room full of college professors and education experts? She was just a kid. What could she possibly teach them? But Mr. Harrison encouraged her. You have knowledge that nobody else has. You've lived this experience. That makes you the expert. The presentation was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon. Lily prepared for weeks, working with an interpreter to plan exactly what she wanted to say. Her hands shook as she stood in front of the auditorium filled with about 200 educators, therapists, and researchers. She told them her story. Not the highlight reel that people saw in viral videos, but the real story. The frustration, the tears, the moments when she wanted to give up, the breakthroughs that felt like miracles. She explained the specific techniques that had worked for her and demonstrated them at a keyboard they'd set up on stage. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. But more importantly, during the Q&A session, the questions were thoughtful and genuine. These weren't people who doubted whether deaf children could learn music. These were people who wanted to know how to make it happen. After the presentation, a woman approached Lily. She introduced herself as Dr. Martinez, a researcher who studied music cognition and sensory processing. She'd been working on developing technology that could help deaf people experience music through haptic feedback, devices that would translate sound into physical vibrations. I've been working on this project for 5 years, Dr. Martinez explained through Lily's interpreter. But I've been doing it in a lab with theories and hypotheses. You've been doing it in real life. I'd love to collaborate with you. Get your input. Make sure what we're creating actually helps people like you. Lily agreed immediately. Over the next year, she worked with Dr. Martinez's team, testing prototypes and giving feedback. They created a vest that translated musical frequencies into vibrations across the user's body. They developed gloves that helped students feel the rhythm and pitch of notes. They designed visual displays that showed sound waves in real time. The technology wasn't perfect, and Lily was always honest about that. It's helpful, she told them, but the most important thing is still dedication and a good teacher who believes in you. Technology can assist, but it can't replace the human connection. Meanwhile, the tutorial videos kept growing in popularity. Lily had created over 30 lessons, and children from around the world were using them. Parents sent videos of their kids playing their first songs. Teachers sent thank you messages explaining how they'd successfully taught their first deaf student because of Lily's guidance. One message stood out. It was from Mrs. Johnson, the mother who had originally reached out. She sent a video of Tyler, now 7 years old, playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star at his school's talent show. His face was glowing with pride. Mrs. Johnson wrote, "You didn't just help my son learn piano. You gave him confidence. You showed him that being deaf doesn't mean missing out. Thank you for being his hero." Lily watched that video 5 times, crying each time. This was why it all mattered. Not the fame or the attention or the opportunities. This, helping one kid at a time discover what she had discovered. That music belongs to everyone. But Lily's journey wasn't without challenges. Being a teenage advocate meant balancing school, practice, video production, speaking engagements, and just trying to be a normal teenager. Sometimes she felt overwhelmed. Sometimes she missed being anonymous, being able to make mistakes without thousands of people watching. There were also critics. Some people in the deaf community argued that she was promoting the idea that deaf people needed to participate in hearing culture to be valuable. Others said she was giving false hope, that most deaf children wouldn't achieve what she had achieved. Those criticisms hurt, but they also taught Lily important lessons. She started being more careful with her message. She began emphasizing that learning piano was one path, not the only path. That deaf culture was rich and complete on its own. That her story was about access and choice, not about fixing anything that was broken. She also started collaborating with deaf musicians who used sign language and visual performance art to create music in ways that didn't require traditional instruments. She learned from them, and they learned from her. Together, they showed the world that deaf people could engage with music in countless different ways. On her 14th birthday, Lily received a letter that made her cry. It was from a prestigious music conservatory offering her a full scholarship to study piano performance when she graduated high school. They wanted her not despite being deaf, but because of everything she'd learned and could teach others about experiencing music differently. Lily held that letter in her hands for a long time. 4 years ago, she'd been a scared 7-year-old who thought her world was ending. Now she had opportunities she'd never dreamed possible. Not because her deafness had gone away, but because she'd found her own path forward and then lit that path for others to follow. That evening, she sat at her piano and played. Not for a video, not for a performance, just for herself. Her fingers moved across the keys with the confidence of thousands of hours of practice. The vibrations flowed through her body like old friends. In that moment, Lily understood something profound. She hadn't overcome her deafness. She'd learned to live with it, work with it, and even see it as part of what made her unique. Her deafness had shaped her journey, and her journey was now helping to shape the world into a more accessible, more inclusive place. The ripple that started with one little girl touching a piano key continued to spread outward, touching lives in ways she was still discovering, and it showed no signs of stopping.